Father, obviously the communion rite is drawing to a close now. His Holiness is seated. It appears as if they still are distributing communion, though.
The ministers are slowly making their way back to the sanctuary area right now, and the Holy Father is sitting there in his pose of meditation, I'm sure, maybe possibly a little exhaustion after the events of this busy day, which aren't over yet. He has a busy evening ahead of him, too. As the choir comes to a close of singing the traditional hymn, Amazing Grace. There may be a brief moment of silence now, and then the Holy Father will lead the people in a prayer that will close the communion rite. And then following that, he will bless the crowd, and he will do it in the traditional Latin form of the blessing. And following that, there's a very special type of a ceremony, the intonations from the Byzantine liturgy, which are sort of toasts to the Holy Father. But now he will be doing the closing prayer of the communion rite.
Let us pray. Lord, you renew our life with this gift of redemption. Through this help to eternal salvation, may true faith continue to grow throughout the world. We ask this in the name of Jesus the Lord. Dominus vobiscum. Et cum spiritu tuo. Sit nomen Domini benedictum. Et hoc nunc et usque in saeculum. Adiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini. Qui fecit caelum et benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen. The Mass is ended. Go in peace. Thanks be to God.
Now, before the Pope leaves the altar, Bishop Yaroslav Gabro of the Ukrainian Diocese of Chicago will chant the intonations that are familiar to the Byzantine liturgy of the Church. These acclamations will wish long life and blessings to the Holy Father and will be expressed in the Ukrainian language. There he is receiving the acclamation of the crowd. I have to admit, he looks a little weary. Looks a bit tired.
His day began early this morning.
The crowd chanting, "Long live the Pope."
Waving little papal flags. What a beautiful sight.
At this point, some of the Mass vestments, all of the Mass vestments are being removed from the Holy Father, and he will put on the vestments that he wore in the motorcades. Another option at this point would be that he would sit and address the crowd, maybe do a little bit of an ad-lib at this point. This is very seldom seen. Usually this is done behind cover someplace. We are lucky to be able to see this. Crowd chanting, "We love you, we love you." John Paul II, "We love you."
Television has introduced the banners.
I'm sorry?
I say television has introduced the age of the banners.
For sure. A lot of them, though, were made with a lot of love. I saw many hand-lettered, some that were almost needle-pointed, that were out along Nagel and Milwaukee yesterday. It's a beautiful shot. Again, no one's going to tell him when it's time to leave. He's going to stay.
Not at all. It looks as if he's walking around the entire platform. Oh, coming down the steps now. Wouldn't be surprised, Father, if he ventured out toward the crowd.
That is exactly what they are prompting him to do. You can be very sure that they want him out there. That is his private secretary next to him, the priest who came from Poland with him. And I would attempt to pronounce his name, but I wouldn't do it justice. And one more blessing.
Just one more?
Just one more.
Will the Byzantine rite take place?
Well, I don't know now. It may have been that somebody omitted it or because of the lack of time, but now he goes ahead and plays to the crowd instead. What a beautiful man.
What a warm and friendly face.
Honest.
Very honest.
He should be warm enough out there. That cassock is made of white wool, so to keep him warm against the nip of the autumn weather here. The Cardinals have divested also. They will be probably taken right to their limousines as well. At least some of the Cardinals have. Cardinal Cody was. Playing a little game with the bishops. Where's your applause?
As you can see on your television set, the Pope has started his motorcade down, I guess, Father, is that Michigan Avenue there?
Well, he'll be going towards Michigan.
Going towards Michigan Avenue. Let us go now out to Joel Daly in the crowd, who will give us his impressions of what just took place. Joel?
You're looking at the bishops of the Catholic Church, 300 of them. Pope's Mass has ended. People here are leaving, but it's been an emotional, reverent, and in some cases joyous, loud Mass. As we said earlier, 1.5 million people at least. It's probably a conservative estimate for the end of the Mass are leaving. Still hearing some of them shout out, and you're hearing the Battle Hymn of the Republic in the background. It's been quite an afternoon. We move back into the studio now with Jim and Jory.
There's really a love, and I think that chokes in all our throats when we use that to express anything. But that's what it is, a feeling of goodness, a positive feeling in a crowd that, in a business that we're used to seeing the other extreme. And it's difficult to report, possibly for that reason.
Just look at him pull away from that crowd. I wonder if he senses that feeling of peace that surrounds him.
As Father Kapler said earlier, he's a man very much at peace with himself. How one man with such great inner peace can inspire millions, literally, in the crowd before him in masses all around the world is truly a gift.
He's begun the process of evangelization. He said we must do it with love, and I just feel it through the screen that there's a great deal of love out there. Now let's hope for the sake of our city and the world that it will continue.
He apparently is not going to move through the crowd. It's rather difficult, primarily because we have no planned corridors or partitions for our segments of the crowd. He was able to drive his motorcade physically through the crowd in the shots that you saw from Ireland and some of the other places, but not here. We allow people to just gather on their own. There you have it, the Mass in the afternoon of Grant Park. It's now 17 past 6 o'clock. We've been covering since 7 this morning and have been watching that experience in Chicago in front of our beautiful front yard and skyline for several hours now. And we'll continue our coverage of the papal visit after these messages.
Well, we have a contrast here between this warm man we see here and the doctrinaire man that we see making pronouncements.
My own feeling is that behind the wave of exaltation that has marked the visit to America of John Paul II, behind that great uproaring of enthusiasm, there has been this question of whether this love for him and this all-out affection will sustain when his firm doctrinal positions come to the fore and are examined by the people who now embrace him, but whose way of life and whose fascination with what they call the permissive society is contrary to what he can hold as the pastor of all the Catholics. He is not about to alter his position on the ancient doctrinal truths. And these are the things, the birth control issue, the homosexual issue, and other issues, where he is preaching the doctrine of Christ. The position he takes on the question of Christ reserved the ordination of clerics to males and not to females. These are positions that some of those who have cried out, "We love you, we love you," some of them are going to have a hard time reconciling. It's like the biblical story of the wealthy man who went to Christ and said that, "What must I do to be saved?" And I think Christ said, "Well, sell what you have and give it to the poor, and then follow me." And his love was not so great that he could bring himself to do that. And I think, although I am presumptuous in speaking like this in front of a priest, but I think that it was just too much, that he did not have that. And I think you might have this same kind of thing in an equation in asking the young people who are being remonstrated by the positions of the Pope. He is behind that facade of love that he displays and the affection and the grasping for people. There is yet this firm position that he has, that he must have as the pontiff. And I don't know just what's going to happen when these two things somehow collide. And spiritually, I think they've got to collide.
Father Skiba, how would the Pope's proclamation at Quigley South, how would it be greeted by your parishioners? Polls say that 80% of American Catholics practice contraception. The Church says that that's against doctrine, and sociological studies seem to indicate that that's the prime reason that Catholics have left the Church. Now we have a very popular Pope whose influence has been felt in his native country. He visited there, tourism went up, religion is now flourishing in Poland. He comes to the United States, where the Church is in turmoil, and makes this pronouncement. What effect will it have on your parishioners at your church?
Not having seen the document myself, I'm really not able to speak officially about it, but I think two thoughts come into my mind at this time. Something that Len just mentioned as he was concluding his remarks and saying that as the pontiff, this is something that he must say, because this is what the church teaches, and he has taken his position as head of the church very seriously, and not taken lightly at all. And in his role as head of the church, it is his job to stand up.
We see the car, Gene, or the motorcade as it's turning.
The Pope is to have a private dinner here at Cardinal Cody's residence tonight. His schedule had allotted about 3 hours, but of course he is running behind time. And if earlier patterns hold up, he will not use all the rest time that was allotted.
Gene, do you know if anyone else, and if so, who else has been invited to dinner?
No, I don't, Jory. The schedule just set a private dinner. Now, these are security people coming by, and now the crowd begins its chant of "We want the Pope."
Well, they have it. There he comes.
Hey, Sarge.
What a retinue of police he has tonight.
Gene, how big is the crowd now, would you say? Has it swelled considerably?
I would say probably 2,000, Jory, at least. The Pope in the closed car. It is rather chilly tonight, but the excitement is as warm as ever. Now, earlier today, the Pope went inside quickly, only to emerge at that second-floor window on the portico, then to have some give and take with the crowd for about 5 minutes. That's the press bus going by. You can see the Pope now emerging from the car.
You can see why one camera crew wanted to have that hedge removed today.
As the Pope walks inside, the cheer goes up from the crowd. Now, if he follows that earlier pattern, this crowd will see him again in just a few moments at that second-floor portico. The acting police superintendent, Joseph D. Leonardi, is here, and he has been at most of the stops along the way.
They're opening the curtains at the window.
Right, apparently in preparation for the Pope's emergence there. The crowd was when the Pope was visible fully in the doorway.
Well, they've already raised the windows, so
right,
he'll undoubtedly come out.
And I'm sure you can hear this baseball-like atmosphere. If the Pope has fun on these trips, and I'm sure he does, I think the crowds have fun. And it's not an irreverent kind of fun at all.
There he comes.
I think the picture says it all.
Well, it says everything except explaining what that coo-coo was. We know that woo-woo in Polish is like wow, but that one baffles me.
I can't help you, Jim.
Turn the sound down a little bit.
Pope once again has responded to the crowds who have grown to see so much of him and apparently like what they have seen. He'll be inside Cardinal Cody's residence for what has been called a private dinner. We don't know who is invited. He will travel later tonight by motorcade to Holy Name Cathedral for a performance by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra with Sir George Solti conducting.